indexing scheme?
Well, the title of the video was Direct Indexing Sucks.
Okay.
And it really, so to say the least, it really stirred the pot quite a bit.
I'm sure.
Okay.
I'm sure. Well,
We,
I don't want to throw you off track. I'll go watch and we can revisit it.
oh yeah, but I mean, let me tell you, we had so many people responding from that, and we had like, what happened was also Scott Solaski posted some kind of snarky comment on Twitter, and then somebody responded back. He started a fight with the vendor. This also kind of fanned the flames, was that Scott posted a snarky comment on one of these vendors of direct indexing who posted about it. And like, then I was there and I posted something backing Scott up. I was like, yeah, and you should read this blog to find out why. And then like the thing went like viral, and a gazillion people were like cannonballing into the pool party kind of a thing. And like reporters got involved in everything. So it really stirred the pot quite a bit. And that's kind of what I'm looking to do with these transparency shorts, is just like pull the curtain here, you know? Anyways, so I'm going to get started. So hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. I am Sarah Grillo, for those of you that do not know me. And it's nice to see everybody who is welcomed back. If you're new, great to see you too. One of the announcements I want to make is just no AI on these meetings, please. If you're looking to enter and record with like an AI bot or anything, I've already probably kicked you out, but please just kick any AI bots out that I may have missed. The July meetup is going to be Susan Bradley. And oh my gosh, here's Scott coming in. It's going to be Susan Bradley, and you could sign up here. I just put the chat in. Susan Bradley is going to be talking about life transitions, and she's the president of the Sudden Money Institute and financial transitions. And so she focuses on the planning aspects of a life transition: divorce, receiving an inheritance, selling a business, etc. And this is something that I think a lot of people will find useful, because this group does tend to be very planning focused. And so please sign up to come and hear Susan talk to us, and bring your questions as well. It's about really the crux of it is, how do you command value for your services using these techniques and this knowledge that she's going to impart to us on the webinar. It's going to be pretty awesome. The other thing is, I would like this webinar to be accessible to all and to maintain an inclusive environment. So there's captioning available if you'd like closed captioning. I also am able to translate this to another language if anybody has difficulties, language difficulties or anything like that, any kind of disability that I need to accommodate. It's always best to let me know in advance, but in the spirit of inclusion, please let me know after the fact if there's anything I can do that I need to do. So there's a lot going on with transparency evangelization, and I just want to talk about this. So I am in the middle of writing a book called How to Find an Advisor Who Won't Ruin Your Life, How to Find a Financial Advisor Who Won't Ruin Your Life. I would say probably next winter. There's, as you know, I have an autistic child, and it's just been a very heavy cross lately to bear. I'm always so joyful to bear this cross, but it's been quite heavy. So it's the publishing of the book has been delayed. I was approached by a few publishers actually, and I just want to be honest with you that I actually kind of like said no. And the reason is I didn't want anybody having control over what I say, even though it would have been better for me financially. I just feel like I've never really filtered my voice, and definitely that's come with some drawbacks to it. But at the same time, that's not really the principle that I founded this movement on. And I just don't want anybody having control over my message or anything. So there's a little bit of a delay for all of those reasons, but I am in the process of writing a book. I'm going to talk about flat fee advisors and transparency, etc. So that's one thing. I've also recently started up an evangelization initiative involving shorts videos. So short videos, less than 2 minutes, are the rage on social media. They get much more attention. They do better in the algorithm. And I want to jump on it with this group. I want to make this group blow up. I want to get us viral. And so I'm working hard on that. I will work with you and interview you. You will answer a transparency question, such as, how do I know if my financial advisor is a crook or not? How do I know how much I'm actually paying in fees? How do I know what the underlying fees are in a mutual fund? Why is it that the insurance company doesn't send an in-force illustration when I buy a policy? All of these types of questions. And we're gonna answer them in 2 minutes or less. So I'm gonna be the interviewer. I'm gonna guide you through it, record the video. I'm gonna edit the video, put it on social media. Now you can send these videos out on your own social media. I would be the one owning the content though. It wouldn't be anybody else's because I'm the one producing it, etc. But I'm just inviting everybody. If you have a transparency topic you'd like to discuss, please come to me and I can broadcast it out to our following. I'm working on building the following. I would like to create millions and millions of people following our transparency movement, but you have to start somewhere. This is the first step. Okay, I'm going to use my knowledge and the techniques that I know. For those of you that don't know me, I'm a marketing consultant. I know exactly how to do this and I've done it before, but I just need volunteers, subject matter experts, advisors, etc., that have something to say and to make a transparency point to the world about something that the world is missing. As I mentioned, Scott Selasky and I did a video called Direct Indexing Sucks. It basically went viral. We got a lot of attention from reporters and it's changed people's lives. It's gotten them interested in our transparency movement. And so if you have a message like that, why is there something that's bad for consumers? Come to me. I will guide you through making the video and I will make the video, but I need your knowledge and I need, to work with you. I will coach you through the recording of the video, etc. Just let me know, approach me with your idea. We have a Facebook group. Like I said, just because of the difficulties with my son's condition, I haven't really been able to focus on it. I apologize. I do see myself as accountable to this group, and it is something that I've set out to do to get us more visibility. I am going to be starting to focus a little bit more on our transparency Facebook group. So what my eventual goal is to get it to where we're having monthly webinars for consumers, free webinars that anybody can just jump on and learn about. What are the tricks when I buy an insurance policy that I should not be victim to? What is the best way to find a financial advisor, et cetera? All of these transparency topics, I'm going to start to run webinars once I get the following up to a certain amount. And like I said, we can always have big goals. And my goal is to have 1 million people following us over the next 3 years. Now, that's my goal and what I'm aiming for. I have a child with extreme special needs, and other than that, I do have 4 total children and a business, but I'm pretty committed to this, and I do feel like I've been called to do this, and so I'm just kind of praying for the strength and then God's grace that I'll be able to execute this. So let me know if you'd like to be involved with anything that I'm working on. Now, the other thing is that I have a marketing newsletter. I publish 1 daily marketing tip a day over email. You could just sign up on my website, sarahgrillo.com. And I just say this because I know for a lot of you, business development is your number one holdup. It's the thing that you're spending the most time on, source of frustration, etc. So if you just go to sarahgrillo.com, sign up for my newsletter. There's one that comes every day. I also have a monthly one, but I answer questions. So if you have a specific marketing question, anything from what's the best social media tracking software to how often should I be posting to Facebook? Is Facebook better than LinkedIn? How do I write a good press release? All of these are questions that I answer. I answer one every day in 2 paragraphs or less. And it's a free newsletter. Sign up on my website. One last thing, Immersion 2025. This is our in-person conference. I ran the early bird pricing and I was astounded. I had so many more people sign up than I thought. Now the early bird pricing is over, but you can sign up here. I'm going to put the link into the comments field. If you'd like to join us, it's going to be in Kansas City, Missouri. So the tickets are now on sale, and save the date. If you're not sure, save the date anyways. It was a great experience last year, and there's testimonials, etc., on the website, on the webpage I just put into the chat. So having said that, so sorry for the long announcements today, folks. I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Estes. He is awesome, and somebody that Kevin is somebody that I really admire personally. I think he has a lot of integrity, and I'm so proud to stand behind somebody with the values that Kevin has. And he's just kicking butt as an hourly planner. Woo! I'm so excited. Go ahead, Kevin, take it away.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I mean, I don't have anything to present. I was hoping we just have a conversation today. I know we did have the conversation that we recorded a while back before immersion. I think we may have posted it right around the time of immersion, which was exciting. But yeah, I mean, business is going pretty well. I guess just a little bit more about myself. I come in from a different background altogether. I was in corporate analytics and finance previously. I worked in retail for the most part. Started off in and well, analytics. So economics research with the Federal Reserve, was in management consulting for a couple of summers, starting after high school. Went to undergrad, got my MBA, worked at Amazon, worked at Walmart, worked at T-Mobile for 9 years, and now this is what I'm doing. So I'm pretty excited about that. So I guess just a little bit about the business. I officially launched just over a year ago. We had cancer in the family, so it took me a little bit longer than I'd hoped to be able to get out there. I did create a financial independence course that has just general education, no advice or anything in it, but I did create that before I officially launched, and it was nice to be able to fast follow with the launch for that. I started down this path a while back. I came in from the financial independence community and found some people who were doing things pretty differently than what I'd seen anywhere else. I loved what they were doing, and I kind of tapped into that as far as just a knowledge base. From there, I started studying for the certified financial, or started the curriculum, I should say, for the certified financial planner examination back in 2019, and luckily passed it and the 65 on my first go, and decided to go ahead and launch my firm after that. And so with that, I'll just open it up for questions of what I think we'll have a nice, robust conversation here with all the folks here. So, do you have any questions, perhaps, especially if you've had a chance to listen to our previous recording? Oh, you're on mute, Sarah.
Thank you. You're an hourly financial planner.
I am. Yeah, I did raise my rate, so I went out with $200 an hour, and then I realized that there was a fair bit more, let's call it, back office work that I need to do. And so I raised it to 250. I'm feeling comfortable with that rate. I think that's where I want to be for quite some time. I admire there's an awesome Mediterranean place in Chicagoland area that had not raised its rates since like 1989. And I love that model of, if you can do it profitably and not change your pricing, that's what I would love to aspire to do. Just keep it at this rate for a very long time.
Structure your engagements. So you work with
Mhm.
T-Mobile employees, right? Just
So
what is,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yes, I do work with T-Mobile employees. However, and that's the magenta bullseye. If I were to pick, kind of who I work with best, they're my ideal clients. And the things that I talk about on social media seem to attract other people who are really close to that goal. And so I've worked with 3 people who are T-Mobile employees. I've worked with 2 more who are former T-Mobile employees, colleagues type thing situation. And then everybody else is related to tech in some form or fashion. They all have restricted stock units. They all have employee stock purchase plans. Some of these things are pretty consistent, which I love because it makes my life a little bit easier. I understand that. That's pretty good. So Microsoft, ServiceNow, some other companies in that space as well. So my deliverables, really, I don't like drop a 40-page plan on people. What I do instead is we create a roadmap before we even get going. So I'll have a meeting or two before they become clients. And that meeting or those meetings will then drive what it is that we put on their roadmap that we co-create. Hey, it looks like you mentioned this. It sounds like your primary goal is this, this, and this. Here are about 6 meetings that I think might make sense. And let's go through, kind of have a theme for each conversation. What is it that we would want to tackle for each one of those roughly 6 meetings, approximately once a month, which is pretty heavy to have 6 meetings within 6 months. At the same time, that to me is the best way to do it because their information is fresh. We get it all together all at once, all their documents, and then I can go through and say, okay, well, this is interesting. And so I'll create that roadmap and then schedule the first meeting. We try to just never break the chain where it's every meeting we have At the end of that meeting, we schedule the next meeting and then just keep doing that until we get to the end of that first agreement. I create agendas for every conversation, and they're typically about 5 pages long. We have a nice long conversation. I take copious notes. Then I go back and feather in all of my notes from the conversations. What extra questions did they have? What additional detail did I provide? Where are some of the resources I can give them? And then those 5 pages might turn into 10 or 15 pages of notes. And I upload that straight up to eMoney, which is my financial planning software, to their vault, so they can see that historically and make sure that they're getting the value for it. So that's I do that for the first engagement, and then I show them what their trend is, what they're forecasting to do for their life, usually out to age 90 or so, unless we have a good reason to believe otherwise. They're going to live a different time, and then show them the impact of the changes they've made so far. So clicking one at a time. Hey, you avoided doing this mortgage at 9%, instead you got a 7%. Here's how this might play out for you over the next 50 years. Okay, hey, you're optimizing your credit card spending by just using a different credit card when you pay for Amazon, right? Or when you go out to restaurants or whatever the case may be. Hey, here's how this might impact your finances out to age 90. Here's what maximizing your 401k, all the things that we do, right? I just try to quantify them wherever possible. And then that results in a pretty decent next conversation to say, hey, this is what we accomplished in our first 6 months. I don't think we need to meet 6 times in the next 6 months, but maybe it's 3 or 4 or 5 or 2, right? And then that results in, hey, maybe this is a follow-up conversation for the next engagement. Here's roughly how much that might cost, and create a new agreement and go from there. I saw a question in the chat.
Kevin, the questions are coming in. I'll go. Yeah.
Hi, Kevin.
Hello.
Hey, nice to see you after FinCon.
You as well.
So real quick, how do you keep the hourly billing from scaring off people with the sticker shock? Do you have like a base plan and then I guess bill for overtime hours beyond that?
No, I would rather be super clear and transparent as to what I think it's going to cost up front. And if that scares them off, it scares them off, frankly. Because I truly think that's the right move. I don't want to ever be in a situation where, hey, I'm going to charge you $5,000 and now it's going to be 11. That's if we ever had that situation, which I did have one for my first client, that would be a new amendment to the agreement. That would be super, super clear. And it would be, documenting why the scope is so much bigger than what we had initially. I just want to be very clear with folks up front. And I do tell them, hey, it's right now probably between $6,000 and $8,000 for those first 6 months. And we're going to go deep. I'm going to treat your money like it's my own. It's not really. I'm not even touching it, right? I don't want you to move your money. I don't feel like that's a necessarily value add for you. However, what I can do is go all in for you, and that's my perspective. Is I want to do the absolute best thing for them, and frankly, I've always exceeded the hours in our agreement every single time. So if I were to charge everybody what I put in for hours, it would probably be averaging more like $11,000 to $15,000, maybe $10,000 to $15,000 per client for those 6 months, and I'm charging them less than that.
This attitude is why I want to replicate him all over the world. Okay, this kind of attitude. Awesome, Kevin.
So let me, if you just clarify, Kevin. So you're giving a range, but so you say, hey, it's going to be $6,000 to $8,000 as an example that you gave.
Mm-hmm.
Then on the back end, or how are you determining what it actually is? Right? It sounds like you're still kind of eyeballing it, but you're not tracking your hours to the minute, or you're certainly not. If you are, you're not charging to the minute.
So I am tracking to 5-minute intervals, and so that is pretty spot on. I track all of my time because I want to be able to go back and analyze it. I didn't come in out of corporate America with the financial flexibility to do what I want, only to then work all of my time. So that is also a way for me to go back and better understand, when am I working too much? What am I doing for that time? Is it worth it or not? And then how do I prioritize, which is actually something I've been doing for this summer, is to say, look, I really want to enjoy the summer. My little one only has a few more years before she's out of high school. A lot of time with, gosh, driver's ed this year, a lot of swimming. She's a competitive swimmer, had some teammates who made Olympic trials. They had a send off the other day, which is pretty cool. So good luck to the swimmers. But at a high level, I do track all of my time. And to your point, I don't necessarily bill all of it. When I reach the cap for our agreement, unless it's going to be extreme, and I mean like more than double what it was that I estimated, I don't go back and amend those contracts. I just say, okay, well, that's on me for doing too much, perhaps, and let me just charge you for what it is we agreed to.
So it's really more almost like it's a flat fee, right? Hey, here's what's going to be. That's what I'm going to bill you, unless there's some drastic mission creep. Is that a fair way to think of it?
Well, it could also go the other direction, although it hasn't happened. Is that if we get into it and it's just we're not vibing, it's just not working for them, then the nice thing is that we can pause the agreement or stop the agreement, and they're only going to be paying for the hours that I put in. So they have a great deal of agency here as well, where if they're like, look, I've had this. I had 4 clients get laid off. We pushed pause on every one of those agreements. We completed all those. I mean, we're nearly complete with all those agreements, but at the same time, I just want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing for them at all times. And that could include waiting to bill them, right, for that second half of our agreement. And that's what my goal is for them to always, hopefully, always have the value of what they're paying for. If I'm not delivering that value for them, then they shouldn't be paying me, is my take. Long answer to the question. Does that answer it?
That it does.
There was another question that came in off the chat, and I think we kind of covered this. You charge hourly when you meet with them, but how do you bill for the work you do for them? I think we covered that, right? Yeah.
Hope so.
Okay. Daniel Bishop, you're raising your hand.
Yes. Yeah, sorry. I'm just getting over eye surgery, so I don't have my camera set up and everything. I'm just listening.
Get well soon.
I'm getting there. Kevin, it sounds like your clients are like they don't need a lot of extra coaching and dragging along as much as some other clients, or they may not need as much counseling or as much financial therapy. What do you do if they don't need you for a long time? Do you have like clients that you put in like a parking spot, or do you just say, hey, I think we need to go to like once a year or every 6 months? Or how do you deal with those types of clients that, those rare clients that you can give a list of 60 items and they will actually do them?
So I've had a mix of all of the above, Daniel, which I think is pretty common for all of us. I have a 28-year-old client whose family has never had wealth. She's making really good money. She's in tech. She doesn't know what to do with it. Fabulous opportunity. And the questions that I get are sometimes painfully basic, but that's okay. That's because they're good questions for her. That's fantastic. I love that because she's growing and I can see it. I can sense that. I can feel it, even though there are lots of questions that she has that maybe it's Googleable, but it's often not. It's just, if you don't know what you don't know until you get into some of these engagements. So I would potentially challenge a little bit that my clients don't need more of that, financial therapy, life planning type work. They do. And I do tend to attract people who have been do-it-yourselfers. To be able to know that you want to work with a fiduciary to start off with is a huge step. Somebody has to be pretty savvy to even know to do that, unless they just stumble upon us. And then you go further into what are some of the other business models for people who are previously do-it-yourselfers and who may continue to be do-it-yourselfers. They might be just looking for an extra pair of eyes. They might have something specific that they want to go tackle. But the nice thing is I've always found something else, usually many other things that I can help them optimize in their finances. And so just backing up, for my process is I go through all their documents. I ask for everything up front and they never provide it all at once, which is okay because there's only so much bandwidth that everybody has. But then when I review their documents, I just create a running list of things that I see that might be interesting. And so I'll make an observation, and then I'll come back and say, oh, wow, you know, I don't really know why this is the way it is, but there's always a reason. So if I don't know the reason why something is the way it is, I can't make a recommendation yet. So that's when I come in with my third step of, you know, or I guess the first step is observation, write it down, plan it out for a meeting in the future, and then ask a clarifying question. What is it about this that's causing this to be the way that it is? And I'll make a guess and then ask an open-ended question about that to see if my guess is right. And then I'll come in with a recommendation as a 3-step process. And I'll just go rip through these one after another. These are the meetings. It's just kind of back to back. I saw this thing, a clarifying question, and then a recommendation over and over and over. And then I'd also say that for every meeting, I ask 2 questions at the very beginning. And if I don't, I get myself into real trouble. And those first 2 questions are, what's on your mind? The reason being that if I just start bullying through an agenda and they had something that was top of mind, then they're not going to be paying attention. They're not going to be fully engaged with what it is that I'm trying to convince them to do. So I need to clear the decks to start off with. That's why I ask that question, and then I repeat it over and over until they're done. Literally until they just kind of stare at me. Usually, oftentimes couples, they'll just be like, nothing. And that's when I know I can move forward a little bit. And then I followed up with a second question: has anything changed since the last time we spoke? Because as I mentioned, I've had four clients get laid off. I've had so many clients get new jobs. One couple, they both got new jobs recently. There was a pregnancy, then a miscarriage. Like life, bought a house, bought a car. Like life is changing so rapidly for the folks in my demographic and in tech that I just can't. I just can't start doing things unless I better understand where it is they are right now. So I don't know if that answers your question, Daniel, but that's my take on the high level as far as what it is that you know how the client engagements go. It does take a lot of handholding. I will say, just as a follow up to that, we do 6 months. They feel really good, fantastic. We never have to meet again. Go forth and prosper, right? I don't mind. Like that is perfect because I feel like I've done my job. Our work, I think, is a lot. There's diminishing returns to everything, including financial planning. We're going to go out and pick the lowest hanging fruit on the tree, and then we have to go higher up the tree to be able to get that fruit. And if you know they feel comfortable with, yeah, I've gotten all I need, but you know, Kevin, I don't need you to go do a full review of my employee benefits every year. Cool, awesome. Let's set it and forget it. And now you don't have to pay me $250 an hour to go review your stuff every year.
Okay, nobody. Mara Madden, your question, please.
Evan, I'm wondering about, as also an hourly planner, and I come from an AUM background, which is, you know, total different structure of things. And I'm wondering how, like when I think about the financial planning, and if you're talking about cash flow projections, I should clarify, retirement projections, there's so much heavy lifting at the beginning as far as data gathering and input and so forth. And I have only used eMoney briefly, not as for like a year or so, not as in depth as other software. But I'm curious, like when I hear people say they're spreading it out over 6 months, is there like a huge push at the beginning? Like, how do you know what you're going to need to talk about in each of those months until you've already run the plan? Does that make sense? Or can you speak to that?
It does to some extent, and I'll just let me maybe double click on that, Maura, as to what types of things we talk about. And so our first meeting, I've pretty much, of course, this is going to depend on the client situation. If somebody's like, my biggest concern is I want to be able to buy a house, well, this is going to be a completely different roadmap, because that conversation would be, okay, cool, let's make sure that you're set up financially to be able to buy the home. Great. Now let's go look around and talk about neighborhoods. Let's talk about what it is you really want. What are your non-negotiables? What do you want to prioritize in this home? Now we're going to go get at a minimum, two different properties to be able to have as a best alternative to negotiated agreement, and go like all old school like negotiation planning on this and truly play multiple players off each other to the extent that we can. And let's go to the same thing for the lenders, right? We should be negotiating not just on the home purchase price, but also on the terms for your debt. Let's do all of that as maybe the first 2 or 3 meetings. And so that would be a different situation. But nonetheless, for a lot of my clients and pre-clients, I call them pre-clients, not prospects, because they're not gold nuggets to be dug out of the ground. But so what I do instead is maybe the first meeting is about net worth and goals, and we quantify those things. Maybe the second meeting is minimizing lifetime taxes. And to be able to do that, I've got to have pretty much all their information in e-money to be able to have that conversation about taxes. And then after that, we might go into strategizing investments, create an investment policy statement. I do that. I try to do that with all my clients. Doesn't always happen, but if I can't do it directly with them, then I'll do it on the back end. And I create investment policy statements, even though I'm not managing their money, because I want them to be fully aligned and completely understand what's going on in their financial lives and what their money is going to be used for. Then after that, we go into optimized investments. So we go from strategy, high level, risk tolerance type stuff when you need the money, liquidity events, longevity risk, all those things, to then straight into, okay, buy this, sell this, buy this, sell this. And in that situation, we talk about this too, but I try to simplify it. It doesn't make sense to me to have a $12,000 account with 12 different investments. That is a complete waste of time, in my opinion, in almost every situation. So we would have to double click into that and figure out what's going on. The next one is often a wild card. So what is it that's on your mind? Is it charitable giving? Is it funding education? What is it that we've already talked about at the very beginning that we discussed that you really want to do? That's kind of one of my questions in the pre-client phase is, what have you not done that you'd like to do? What would you like your money to accomplish? These are just big, open-ended questions deliberately to elicit feedback. Every once in a while, I'll find something in a conversation is like, ooh, that's crunchy. So I did college planning for somebody, and I assumed that their state, they were in Texas. I was like, hey, I'll just assume the University of Texas, Austin as your in-state expense for college, and they both go, no. I was like, whoa, okay, what's going on here? We're gonna be moving, Kevin. Like, we don't want to be in Tejas anymore. This is a different place for us. And so it's just nice to be able to have those open-ended conversations. And then that 6th meeting oftentimes is going to be the financial independence conversation of, hey, when might you be able to hang up your cleats? We don't know for sure. When could you have more flexibility to do what you really want to do, whether or not it makes money? And then here are the impacts of the changes you've already made. So that to me is a pretty common kind of a six meeting structure. And so to answer your question, yeah, I might put in half the hours before we meet the first time if they truly got all of their documents. And I just slot those and get them ready so that it will hopefully tie into the theme for that meeting in that month. Does that help, Maura?
It does. I think if I may ask a follow-up question, then and I feel like I don't structure it exactly like that, but I follow the same. I mean, we're all following similar things. But I guess what I find is, so say you do taxes and then you go on to investments. Well, what you decide on investments is going to then affect the taxes. So I feel like everything is so cyclical that that's why and maybe I'm overthinking it, but that's why I have trouble parsing it out. I'm curious how you deal with that then.
Yeah, it's a little bit like sweeping, and then at the bottom, like you've swept almost everything up. You saw that line that doesn't get in the dustbin, and what do you do with the line? To me, does it go into the rug? Do you like get a vacuum? Like, what do you do? My take is that you're absolutely right. They're recursive. They interact each other. This whole fabric. You pull a thread here, and it unravels this sweater over here. I just look at it as an organic process where I'm not going to just talk about that one topic. And usually it's the last topic in every meeting. I'll go through follow-ups I'll of course start off with those first 2 questions of, what's on your mind and has anything changed? That could be half the meeting. Then after that, I'll drop into follow-ups. Hey, here's what I did. Here's what you did. Any questions there? Hey, were you able to, this makes sense? Were you able to change those investments, et cetera? And then after that, we get into the regularly scheduled programming of what it was the topic for that conversation. And it just, I look at it as, yes, they do completely interact with each other and they have to by design. And I am not the expert of them. I do not know everything about my clients when we first start working together, which is part of why I think keeping this open mind is so beneficial, because I'm constantly learning, I'm constantly writing things down, I'm constantly going back to my notes to say, okay, what's the best thing for them right this minute? Does that help?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that.
You bet. I'm just going to rant. I'm sorry. A lot of advisors, let me back up. What I'm getting feedback from pre-clients when I meet with them is that my process is much more organic than many others' processes. And what I feel could be the risk of a factory model is that not everybody is the same. Everybody is in fact different. And so if we run people through the same factory model every single time, it can get messy. And we may miss really big things that are actually more important. Either they truly are more important to their financial lives, or it's more emotionally important to them. And so I try to instead prioritize the things that make the most sense for them. I don't want to make it easy for me. I want to make it effective for them. It's a slightly different framing. But when I hear people bragging about how they just run everybody through the same process and it's this perfect system, it makes me think of like Star Trek Borg. I don't love that model, because I'm not certain that they're actually doing the best thing for their clients at all times. What happens if somebody gets sick or gets disabled or dies, and you didn't get to the most important things for them? What happens, if they terminate the agreement and they're like, well, I got what I need, I'm moving on, but you didn't get to some of the most important elements first. That's where I struggle. Is I truly want it to be the most important, most impactful things first that they can action, and then second, and the third, and the fourth. That's kind of my mental model.
Hey, Kevin, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Given your rant that you just had, kind of as a pickup on that, and by the way, I really support that idea, because a lot of times as you're running people through a model, let's call it, or a process, or whatever you want to label it, that advisors put people through, you try to cover everything in that. That's why that process is set up. But when you do a more organic approach, like you're talking about, it really is like what is on their mind right now, what is urgent to them, not necessarily what's urgent to you as the advisor in your process as you go through it. Do you ever fear when you go through the organic approach that you're talking about that you're not going to cover important things that clients may not even be thinking about that are important, because you're covering a lot of other things that are more important to them at the time or during the 6-month engagement?
Yeah, and first off, I hate to run clients through. That sounds like pirates in the days of yore. If that sounds dark. Nonetheless, I will say that yeah, it is a concern, and that's part of the reason why I have the roadmap to keep me on track. Hey, here are the big things that I think, based on our initial conversation or two, that we really need to make sure we tackle. And then I will have that list of items that really, to me, make the most sense to keep peppering in. So, hey, here are the either follow-up items from our last conversations, or here are things that I saw that I really need to make sure I include in here. Life, disability, umbrella, those things for sure tend to get feathered in pretty early. In a meeting cadence where it's like, hey, here's what's on your mind, and what are the has anything changed? And then we get through all these little kind of quick items to make sure we at least touch on them and ensure that there's nothing big. It's a little bit like a dentist checking for cavities in your mouth, right? It's let's probe a bit and make sure there's nothing, no soft spots, no areas that could be a real concern, and then we can go back to the cleaning and all that. Does that help, Scott?
Yeah, that helps. I always get concerned when you're kind of trying to put somebody in a 6-month process, because it's like at the end of the day, I kind of, what you said, organic, and the way you described it is more like akin if you go to a therapist, non-financial, if you will. You go in and it's like I'm assuming like what's on your mind today. You get your schedule weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, whatever you're doing. And, that kind of leads to that day's conversation on whatever topics at hand. And if there's nothing there, then you know, the professional has some backup. So if you're kind of always approaching it that way, do you really ever get fully through kind of all the important things without, oh, we need another 6-month engagement? Or maybe that's what you do if that runs into that issue.
Yeah, and that's that. So estate planning, almost no one wants to talk about estate planning in the first 6 months. I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to continue to push them a bit on it, because they typically do need it. Everybody has an estate plan. It's just not what they want, right? So let's make sure that we can we can prioritize this as a conversation, and you can document what your wishes actually are. Who take care of whom. The biggest thing too is single folks is they when I ask them a basic question of, hey, who would make your medical decisions for you if you were incapacitated? Crickets. They don't have a plan at all, and that is a scary place to be. And you're letting a judge decide who it is who would make your life and death decisions. That seems challenging. And so we talk through that. I will have a follow-up engagement planned for every conversation that's a good one. If they were complete jerks to work with, I have a no jerks rule. And so we just won't work again together. I will wish them well and potentially refer them out to somebody else. But I will almost always have another roughly 6 months planned out for them for a roadmap. It just will likely be fewer meetings. And some of that will often is follow up of, hey, I recommended these investments. Maybe they didn't get to them right away. Let's continue to talk about it every meeting, and then put that on the schedule for the next roadmap.
One quick follow-up to that. So do you have clients that just keep you engaged and sort of nonstop, just a revolving like retainer or agreement every 6 months?
I don't think of it that way. And I deliberately don't charge them for the time that I create their roadmap. Right. That's what I try to do is separate. Here is my work that I did for the first roadmap, but I'm going to treat you like a new client. And as I treat you like a new client, I wouldn't be charging new clients for that roadmap. So why would I charge you? And so I look at it as not in no way a given that they're going to continue to work with me. What I need to do is prove the value of that first engagement, and then have really clear not directions necessarily, but really clear plan for what it is we're going to work on in the next roughly 6 months. And so I want to be challenged. I want them to be questioning whether or not the value of the work we do together and the advice that we're going to be doing is going to be worth that next 6-month engagement. And if it's not, awesome. They've got what they need. Maybe we pare it back. I get pushback from time to time, which is wonderful. If I say, hey, I think it makes sense to do these 4 things and it's going to cost $5,000, and they say, kind of don't need these 2, maybe it's 3. Fabulous. Now I'm ensuring that I'm personally getting good feedback from them. They're like, yeah, maybe I don't want to do all those things. Maybe I'm not seeing a ton of value in everything that we do here. Fabulous. I want there to be a checking mechanism in place so that whenever I'm charging them, they're fully bought in that, yes, this makes sense. And I totally understand why I'm paying you for this work.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Or it's just overwhelming for people to sort of take all that on, even in a 6-month process.
Absolutely.
Kevin, to follow up on Scott's line of questioning there,
Yeah.
Dealing in 6-month increments, it sounds like is sort of a norm. After each 6 months, what does the client have in terms of documents to know what did Kevin do for us last time? Is it just the invoice that you list the items, or is there some sort of reporting that you do so they can look back and say, yes, we did this and this and this and this and this and this, so they have a paper trail to remind them what you did?
They get what I create. So they get all of my notes. They get the 10 to 15 pages for every meeting. And then at the end of that 6 months, the last conversation, I go through and document by meeting. I started doing that recently because I realized this huge list of like Santa's list that just scrolls out, right? That's just not an easy way for people to consume the information. So I go back meeting by meeting and say, in this meeting, we accomplished this and this and this and this.
Yeah.
In this meeting, we accomplished this and this and this and this. In this meeting, we accomplished this and this and this. So each So they have both. They have all the full documents with screen captures of the graphs that were reviewed in eMoney,
Yeah.
of all the recommendations, of all of the notes that I put forth to them, because I show them the agendas
Right,
when I'm in
right.
these meetings.
But I guess part of it too, and you know, and then I'll move on. After 6 months, it looks like they may have 50 or 100 pages of your notes and reports and graphs. I'm just wondering whether you think there's a need or not a need to say, let me summarize it in 2 pages, what we did this last 6 months, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. So, you know, it's just easy for them to retain and to remember. And where I'm coming from is when a couple of years ago, we met with a couple of state regulators on fixed fees. One of their issues was the sort of, I think, record keeping. What did you do for me last month if you didn't put any time in? You know, and that sort of thing. So that's what I'm sort of getting at. And hourly is different, but so I'm just curious what they have in addition to your 50 to 100 pages of notes to sort of remind.
Absolutely. And again, in that last conversation, I go through it with them.
Yeah.
And I do have the 2 pages of notes by meeting. Here are the things that we 3 to 10 things that we accomplished for each meeting. And then I show them in eMoney. Here's the assumed impact of $600 a year in savings with credit cards spending. Because you just switched over. Or here you refinance your home. Here's what that impact might be over the course of your lifetime. And I'm really sorry, but here's another quick rant. I believe that there should be model parity. I do not think that it is in the regulator's charter or anything else to be determining what the right model is for every person. So I'm completely okay with regulators. They need to be checking everything. They need to understand that the advisors are doing the right thing for their clients at all times. And if you're going to ask people to document how much you're charging them per hour, you better do it for AUM. Because frankly, I struggle with how that is actually working right now in this industry, coming in from another space. When I look at it from a client perspective and I see people who are charging $10,000 to $100,000 a year and meeting with them twice a year, I do the quick math and I say, you're charging how much per meeting? There's no, if I believe in modern portfolio theory, which I do, then I don't believe that just managing somebody's assets is actually going to be adding alpha. So therefore, the only value you're getting is from the conversations, the behavioral changes from the meetings. So I would implore all regulators and all consumers to divide their cost, dollars, divided by their meetings that they have with their advisors to see just how much they're paying right now, because I do not think that it is in their best interest, the clients.
Good point there. Next question in the chat regarding follow-up, especially post 6 months. Is it just hourly or is it another 6 months? Also, is it driven by you or do you basically say, go forth, call me if needed?
It is for me, and coming from another hourly advisor as well. So thank you for that question. I look at it as it's always based on hourly, and it's based on what it is that we're tackling with that particular agreement, that particular engagement. And so answer is both. It is project-based. It is roughly 6 months. Keep in mind that I've had ranges for those agreements between, I think, 2 or 3 months and 10 months. And that's okay. I want there to be some flex. I had a client who's trying to decide whether or not they needed to change jobs. Is the current compensation I get with our current level of spending, is that going to work or not? Or do I need to go get a higher paying job? They wanted to meet every other week. They actually probably wanted to meet every week, and I pushed them back because I'm like, there's going to be work for me. There's going to be work for you. But we accelerated a great deal so we can meet quickly so they can make that decision. And they were able to then make that decision. Other people, as I mentioned, the layoffs, right? I just don't feel comfortable when somebody's making $0 to be charged them $250 an hour. So I'm going to hit pause until they get their feet back underneath them. I think it's the right thing for them. And so I just want to say that I'm not treating it as a hard and fast, thou shalt complete this within 6 months. It's much more of a, here are the things we're going to work on. And if we have to move a meeting, so be it, right? If we can't get to all the things all at once, that's okay. And I do have this as a draft. so that if there are other things that are way more important that pop up, we can prioritize there. There's flexibility within the system to be able to ensure that we're really doing the things that are really super important for them. I don't know if that helps, Dwight.
Kevin, this is John Salvato. Thanks so much for the time today. We're a big fan of the hourly. However, we typically find that to be more project-based, which you talked about. Our flat fee engagement is, the expectation with the client is that it's recurring. It goes on forever, right? Some of it includes investment management, some of it doesn't. And maybe this isn't as applicable given the age of your client base, but all of our clients over the age of 63, we engage in annual tax planning to, make sure that we're staying under IRMA thresholds. If there are gifting strategies, donation, DAFs, all these different elements that are out there. And a lot of times we can't understand exactly what that strategy is going to look like until, number one, last year's tax return is filed, and number two, we've put a projection together for this year. I guess what I'm saying is that's a very seasonal event for us, right? So we know October, November, December, that's our heavy tax planning season. If you engage with somebody January 1st, right, that would be in that situation, how would you handle that knowing that, the timing of that tax planning doesn't necessarily line up with the 6-month project timeframe, if you will?
Yeah, and there are other seasonal activities that happen as well. Like, what do you do if you just miss? Had this with the client. One of the topic items was going to be her open enrollment, and then she had a close personal friend who got stage 4 cancer and another friend who passed. She's single. I can't meet. I do not have the mental bandwidth right now to be able to meet with you. Cool. So we meet again early the next year, and now we can't get through open enrollment at that point because we have to wait until the fall when she can change things again. I look at it as we just do the best that we can with what we have, and I do create tax letters for folks, either for themselves if they're doing it personally with TurboTax or whatever, or if they're working with an accountant, I create a tax letter. Here are the things that I'm aware of that I think can impact your taxes this year as a bit of a checklist. Right, checklists save lives. When you look at history of aviation, one of the biggest advancements that improved crash rates was just having a checklist. And so that's my perspective, is going through it that way of let's do the things we can to be able to ensure that we catch as much as we can. I do not focus. It's kind of had a friend of mine who went on to become a senior, well, he used to be like a C-level executive for a big Fortune 500. He was getting really frustrated by all the water that he couldn't capture that was just going down the side of the road. But then he started to focus more on the buckets that he was able to get, and that changed his perspective, and he was much happier. I think that I like to focus on what can I do as opposed to what can't I do. And in that situation, I guess what I'd say is, if it's going to be impactful for them, let's prioritize as much as we can, and I'll try to learn as much as I humanly can about that situation and then make recommendations. But I cannot dwell on the things that I just don't have the ability to get to, either because we started too late or because we just couldn't quite get to it in time. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, this is Deborah. Can you hear me?
Sarah? Yeah, come on, Deborah.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I love what you're doing. I'm trying to do that. My biggest problem is I'm working for my RIA that I work under only understands AUM. And he keeps saying, that's good. I'm glad you're charging that much. I'm glad you're doing that. But I document. And listening to you is helping me figure out how to set it up, what kind of the model is actually going to be, because he doesn't understand. And the other thing he says is, yeah, we should have, sign them up and then have their plan in 6 weeks. And it's like, I do with most of my clients, I do this ongoing counseling kind of a thing. And I am a CFP, and I am working with Sarah, so she's helping me a lot, but I'm not real sure the logistics of it. This is what I was asking Sarah, like, how do I log the product? How do I log the hours? I'm just sort of making it up as I go along, how to figure it out, where I put how to log it and everything. So, hopefully at some point, I don't want to take up the time of the call, but we could set up a time to, if I could talk to you, I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And feel free. Just grab my time, go out to scalefinance.com and grab some time and you'd be treated like a prospect, but it's or a pre-client, but it's not. We can absolutely meet. Love to have that conversation. I just say that you don't necessarily have to have it be super fancy. I use
No.
my phone, and when I use my phone, I literally use the memo function. I have every 5 minutes, roughly, I try to or every time that's 5 minutes, I try to record that. And so
Yeah.
today, for instance, it'll be Wednesday 6-12, and in my memo will be woke up at this time, right? And then had
Okay.
coffee at this time, and then had breakfast at this time, and then worked on pre-client meeting at this time. And
Oh,
the
okay.
nice thing too then is I refer to clients as numbers, which is not ideal, but it's a little bit more secure from
Right.
this recording perspective, and it's a little bit faster to be able to say, oh, that's C6, that's
Yeah.
C11, that's C, as opposed to typing out their full name, because some of my clients have very long names, which is wonderful, and would take forever for me to type out. So
Well, yeah,
that's my
because
quick and dirty. Is I
that's
do
your
that
quick.
and then throw it into Excel.
Okay, so what's the website I go to? I'm at a doctor's office with my husband in the hall.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Because I didn't want to miss the call.
No, I appreciate
Um,
you being able to do it. Thank you, Dwight, for dropping that. And you actually got a link in there too, which I did not. So well done. So just check the chat. Just scaled finance, past tense of scale. Somehow I'm like ranking some for scaled as a word. Like I'm like the seventh apparently in Google. So
Okay.
I'm pretty excited about that. But yeah, just set up some time, Deborah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And Sarah, I'm so glad you did this. Thank you.
Amen.
Okay, I'm
Next
gonna get off.
question.
I'm gonna get off the call now. Thank you.
Okay, do you limit
Bye.
the number of clients you work with at one time or during a 6-month period?
So yeah, for this summer, I pretty much stopped taking on clients for the near term because I wanted to be able to enjoy the summer. I find that a lot of my work is heavy early on. The other thing is that this gives me flexibility to change when we meet. So if I do a 6-month agreement or engagement with somebody and we end in March and I want to be able to take the summer off, hey, do you mind if I reach back out to you in August to schedule some time in September? Absolutely. I can do that. I have the flexibility within my hourly model to be able to say, maybe I don't have to force this next conversation to happen right now. I know that I want to enjoy my summer and so do they. So we prioritize that instead. And then just how many do I take on? I don't want to take on more than 2 clients a month. That is my threshold for what I can see right now because it's so heavy early on. And if it's a lot of repeat clients that are coming in at that time, I might limit it to 1 or maybe in 0, as I'm doing kind of right now, right? So yeah, but this model gives me the flexibility where I'm not managing investments, so I don't have to be on call all the time for investments, and I'm not charging monthly, so I don't have to justify my monthly billing for every single client or with AUM by meeting with them or doing something for them for every month. This gives me the flexibility in my life to prioritize what I really want. I don't know if that helps.
I don't know if Scott is still here. Scott, are you still here? Yes. Okay, he's muted. Maybe he's on a call or something. Okay, Eileen, do you want to say something? Hi, Eileen.
Have to come off on mute. No, Kevin, I really appreciate it. It's always nice to hear when folks are doing this. And as Sarah knows, I'm currently the managing director of the Garrett Planning Network. So I always felt Cheryl created this business model, and it's only coming back out now to be more and more in everyone's vernacular towards it. So I'm just delighted to see more and more people offering the as needed, advice only, hourly, project based. And I agree with everything being said here. The consumers need to know where to find folks that do this kind of work. And every time people explain it, how they've envisioned it and how they're doing it, I think it's wonderful that we're all sharing the information. So kudos to you. Great to hear how you're
Thank
doing it in
you.
the story.
Thank you. And I have to say that absolutely read Cheryl Garrett's book. I spoke with the Garrett Planning Network before I decided to go a separate direction. I absolutely inspired by what it is that she and you have built and created. I think that Cheryl was absolutely 100% right in one area, in that like hourly planning makes the most sense to me from a model for the way that I go to business, at least. I think the piece that I would potentially suggest that I'm trying to move in the direction of is niching. The niche combination with hourly planning makes a ton of sense to me, because then I don't have to spend so much unbillable time understanding the client situation, that I can be more efficient and effective. I can work with more people just because I am more targeted. I'm more specific in what it is that I do. And so that to me was the add-on. If I were to add one thing to the model that I saw from Cheryl, is that I love the hourly model. I just don't think that every advisor can work with every client.
And to that, I don't want to turn it into debate, but every office is independent and is absolutely creating their own version of that model. And hopefully you guys all saw the recent announcements. Cheryl did sell the network to its members. So lots of things are going on right now. So there's a new alliance taking place that's going to better help direct the future growth of the network. But again, I love these conversations, and I love to hear the success stories of anyone that's incorporated that type of model into their business. So thank you again for just, sharing this information, and Sarah, to yourself and the group here, for keeping the word and getting it out there.
Emmanuel, and just another, just want to reiterate, because I know a lot of people are going to be dropping off here. I'll be staying on if other people want to stay on and continue the party. But in the meantime, if you're leaving now, please come to me if you want to do a 2-minute short video. My goal is to make these videos go viral on social media. So I'm going to coach you through it. We're going to create the video together. I might beat you up a little bit in a nice way, but you'll probably learn something. And my goal is to get attention for hourly, flat fee, and advice only. So there's that. Also, it would be helpful if this group could help the evangelization initiative that I'm working on. So if I post something to social media and you agree with it, now I know I post like sometimes crazy stuff, okay? To be honest about that. But if there's something that you really agree with, that you think your clients and prospects and followers would need to hear about, please share it, or make suggestions of other people, mention them or tag them. Okay, so social media can be so powerful, and I just want to take over the world using social media to because I know there are so many people out there that if they just knew about us, if they just knew that you could work with a financial advisor this way, they would do it. I mean, I talked to one guy that was paying his UBS person $4,000 a month, found a flat fee advisor. The cost savings has been monumental. Okay, so, but it's not just that, it's other things too about the relationship. Okay, so what I'm saying is, I mean, my goal is to get 1 million followers for this movement in 3 years. It's a huge goal, but I know that if we already have the amount that we have, if I have 1 follower, I could get 1 million. It's just going to be a question of how smart I am about the steps I take. So one of the steps I'm taking here is asking, please support this movement. Please support the evangelization that I do. Not when I go out there and I say like, yeah, flat fees are the best or whatever, but when I talk about things that raise consumer awareness, like you might be getting screwed up, excuse me, you might be getting a bad deal with your IUL policy. Look for this or that. Before you work with an advisor, ask these 5 questions, okay? Consumer awareness topics. Anyways, having said that, we can continue the conversation here. If people have to drop off, drop off. The next one is in July. I put the sign up link in the comments field. Immersion 2025. I couldn't even believe how many people signed up on early bird. So the tickets are still available. There still are spots. I'm going to, in the summertime, I'm going to start the pods with Immersion 2025, where you're going to be grouped in with somebody who has a business model like yours. There's going to be a little bit more differentiation with Immersion 2025, where I'm going to break people down into different tracks, like advice only track, flat fee track at the event, just kind of figuring out how I'm going to do that. So it's going to be hopefully even better than Immersion 2024, which was just a few months ago. And let's continue the meeting. Having said that, if you need to drop off, drop off. But Kevin, can you stay?
Yeah, I'll hang out for sure.
Okay, if you want to stay and hang with us and keep talking, then by all means.
Thank you, Eileen. Nice to meet you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Hey,
Hi.
Kevin, thank
everybody.
you. Hi, everybody.
Gotta go. Bye. Thank you.
We'll see you next month.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm
Kevin.
gonna rant again.
It is kind of your thing, Kevin.
It is, yeah. I tend to get on a soapbox, and I'm sorry. Thank you, Mike, for calling me out on that. That is true.
Respectfully.
Respectfully, so that is something that I found. People ask me, how do you come up with your content ideas? And I'm like, yeah, no, I have thousands of ideas. Whenever I get passionate about something, whenever I start to just like, oh, I didn't want to talk about this, or if I disagree with something, I tend to write that down and start to flesh out what that could be in the world, and then I'll go create it. AUM, I'm not anti-AUM, right? Despite I'm just against assets under management without the resulting hours of work to go with it and the benefit for the client, right? So there are situations where it 100% makes sense to be AUM. Younger folks, they might pay less on AUM early on who are just now starting to build up their portfolio. It could be much less expensive for them to go that route, and that's fantastic. I am also not against investment management. There are 100% situations where it makes a ton of sense for somebody to hand over the reins for their investments to somebody else who's going to be able to do it for them. If they just don't have the skill, or if they don't have the training, they don't have the temperament, right? They don't have the time, right? I guess I could just probably put them in T's. But all of those things would result in it maybe makes sense for somebody else to do it. End of life. When we get to the point where we start to experience cognitive decline, you better believe that I'd be suggesting that we have somebody else manage our investments. For my clientele right now, that's not where we are. And that's not what they want. And this feels like a less served area of the market for people who've been do-it-yourselfers and just want to do it with somebody else for a while and do a double check, make sure everything's good to go. But I'm not against investment management. I'm not against AUM. I just don't necessarily believe that everybody, many people in the country have a tough time breathing. Some folks need to have maybe better exercise, get out in nature more, maybe eat a little bit better, but not everybody needs to be on a ventilator. And that's what is, I think, happening, in my opinion, with investment management, is that people are completely outsourcing that and having a person or a machine do it for them. And I think there may be a better way.
I'm never controversial, but I'm going to kind of throw this out there. Do you think advice only is the proper term that should be used for what you're doing, or any advisor that's not managing money? And the reason I ask this is because there's one advisor, Cody Garrett, and we're all familiar with, and I'm a big fan of Cody, but a lot of times he'll say, well, I do advice only, but I don't push the buttons to do the trades. But when you think about advice only, I think about somebody I'm talking to and they're talking back and forth and we're having a conversation. That's advice only. Really, in the advice only model, what he's saying, and I think what many people are saying, is that you don't manage the actual investments on a discretionary basis. So whether that's pushing the buttons to execute the trades or not, we're still pushing buttons to create a plan. We're still pushing buttons to create a roadmap. We're still pushing buttons to do these other things. So we're not doing advice only per se, if you're doing advice only.
I think we struggle with the term. I think painting ourselves as an only of anything is a little bit challenging. I also think that I like this model because my clients are smart. They're the experts of themselves. They challenge me. We make better decisions together than I would in a vacuum. And so I like this model because it is harder. I like this model because I get another couple or another person who's has a ton more background and history on their finances. They understand what's coming, and they can provide additional detail that I wouldn't get another way. If I make a suggestion and I get pushback, it's usually because there's something I didn't know that wasn't disclosed. It wasn't in I didn't see it in the documents. We didn't have it in our multiple conversations. And I just worry that it's possible that people who just outsource it could miss some of those dynamics of making better decisions by truly getting in there and having good conversations. If they're not going to do it, there's usually a reason why. If I make a recommendation and they say, I don't like that because, the because is super important. And I need to understand what is going on. And sometimes I can often change that by bringing in additional information or insight or whatever the case may be, different framing. I think the metaphors we use, the stories we tell are super important for this. But at the same time, I do feel like my clients have a better financial outlook because of this dynamic where I just don't click a button and then they scream later on.
Right, but I think just more of the concept, and I appreciate everything you said. I mean, I think that makes perfect sense, but I think just the idea that, you know, if people are going to be kind of calling themselves advice only and then equating it to, I don't manage your money, it's also the other side of it. You're doing all the other stuff but managing money. So you are doing stuff besides just providing advice to people. I think that it's sort of just become a term now that sort of separates the investment management from what everything else that an advisor is doing for clients. So it's not really advice only. You're still being a financial advisor, doing all these other things, entering data, analyzing data, you know, running money presentations, doing cash flow and everything you would normally be doing. So it's not just sitting on the phone or on a Zoom with somebody saying, I'm just going to give you advice for the next half an hour, and then you go do it and then come back to me. I'll give you some more advice. So that to me would be advice only.
Yeah, and I think that we're getting stuck because we can't find a better term. It's like the Federalists. They're like, we're the Federalists, and like, and we're the Anti-Federalists. Like, well, that sounds inspiring. We're in this situation where I think the terminology, we need to get a better term, but like I look at it like maybe I don't have my grubby paws in your money, right? Like, cool, if you want to call terms, like
I'm not touching your income. I'm not touching your investments. I'm not touching, you know, whatever.
Yeah, it's a marketing problem that I'm certain that, you know, Sarah and others will combine together as Voltron and be able to solve this.
Yeah, I don't know. It just is one of these things that's the more I hear it, and then, you know, again, Cody's very famous for saying this. You know, I don't, you know, hit the buttons to do the trades, but yet he's giving them recommendations on everything that needs to be done, just like he has other parts of planning, like we all are. So it's like it's a little bit of he's using it for marketing, where I think on the other side, you know, the advice only concept is a marketing concept as well. So,
but isn't
so
that kind of
instead
the
of creating the sorry, Mike, real quick, hold that thought, please. Instead of clicking the button for them, he's creating an instruction manual for how to click the button. And that's harder,
yes.
right? But at the same time, if they're able to do that for now and forever, and they don't need to have me or you or Cody or anybody else to be able to do that, if they know how to do it and they're empowered to do it, you've taught them how to self-service, but you've done it in a way that is going to hopefully carry them through the rest of their lives. That's a wonderful situation, in my opinion. I don't, you know, there was I'm not gonna say what country, but there was a country that had the idea that the best way to be able to maximize their profits as a company in another country was to be able to put a lock on the hood so you couldn't work on your car. I don't think that's in the best interest of consumers.
Yeah, I agree.
Sorry, Mike, go for it.
No, I was just saying, to me, that's the whole point, right? Is, hey, we do all the things that the traditional advisors do, and as we all know, in a lot of cases, we do a lot more. But that's a whole other topic of conversation, you know, except actually placing the trade. But it, you know, as I tell clients, like the placing of the trade is no different than buying something on Amazon. It's knowing what to trade. Right. So, and Ian, your comment, right, is I use that analogy sometimes too, right? You know, it's you know, a GPS versus a chauffeur, or you could, you know, go back to the old school, right? You know, printing out MapQuest pages, you know, same kind of thing. So, yeah, and that's really what most clients want, is they want to know what to do. Who actually does it is, you know, especially when it comes to placing the trades, is to me less material for majority of people.
And in the financial, you know, in the certified financial planning curriculum, the two pieces that I think get missed is not just the I, it's also the M, right? Is monitoring. How do you do with monitoring? And that's an open debate that I have. I basically say I don't I do have access and visibility to your finances. However, if you're not in an active hourly engagement with me, I'm not monitoring it for you. So that's okay. Just let me know if something big changes. If you have any questions, reach out and maybe we gen up another engagement to be able to tackle that. But again, everything, the CGAD PIM, everything except for the I and the M, I feel like are being solved in the space. And for some of those elements, especially with the implementation, we may, as we talked about, be doing more work, Mike. Yep. Yeah, and so Dwight, I love your analogy here. It's way harder for the pilot and easier and better experience for Owen if I have a seat in the cabin and let the pilot do their job. And I would say that I work, I'm sure you do the same, is I work really hard to get things set up on autopilot, where we don't have to keep meeting just to meet. That we get you set up and we streamline your finances. And that's another thing that I work really hard to do is if I see somebody with 50 accounts, which I had not too long ago, not investments, accounts, right? We're going to try to pare that back. We're going to try to consolidate those accounts so they're substantially more manageable. If I see a dozen investments in a $12,000 account, you bet your bottom I'm going to be recommending maybe we have one investment for that account. The complexity there is complexity breeds dependency. And I'll just call a spade a spade. There are times that I feel like this overly complex model is benefiting those who force people to stay on the ventilator and never get off it.
100%.
Yeah, but even
all right, I think I'm done ranting.
But even if people want to get off the
questions?
ventilator, a lot of times the complexity is created over the years. It's hard even for the client and advisor that are in sync to get off the ventilator, to get them off the ventilator because it's too complex. And most of the time there's taxable accounts and other things involved and you can't deal with it. So.
Yeah, I agree. And as an industry norm, if everybody if everybody thinks the hospital is all ventilator all the time, we look a little weird.
Yeah, I agree.
By doing it this way. And people have pause whenever it's not the norm. And that's, even though it's in my opinion, it's in the best interest of the clients. In many situations, not all, as we talked about before, I struggle with this model, and I struggle with this decision to say, hey, look, let's do it what I think is the right way. And it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody else managing their money.
Right. No, I agree. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Kevin. I got to run.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks,
good combo. All right, Sarah, you're on mute, and my hunch is that we're probably wrapping up.
Yeah, we're wrapping up here. We should have a meeting sometime about coming up with another word for this.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we should have a meetup about it. Maybe we should talk about it and brainstorm together. I don't know. Anyways, I'm ending the meetup unless people want to stay on. What do you want to do? Can I end it? Can we end the meeting now? Yeah. Okay. Amen. Bye, everybody.
Take care.